Sorry about that. I just ran. Okay, so honestly, it's a little secret of mine. Uh, I've been thinking of myself as the brand mascot for foil, honestly. So I don't know if she read out my entire name. It can be a mouthful. People don't get it. When it starts, Venkata, they think it's a man. They don't know what's going on. So at home, I speak two different languages with my parents. With my husband, I speak a whole third different language. I have called Bangalore my home for 2 years. And when I'm here with the auto walas, I can bearam pacify. I don't know if there are some Tamilians who got what bearam pacify is. So I can negotiate. So yeah, so I've been thinking of myself as the brand mascot. And in some sense, that's what brands need to do. I speak to my father in Bengali, with my mother in Telugu, with my husband in Tamil when I really want to say, hey, yeah, the panla, you know. Otherwise, it's all cordial in English. But so that's what brands need to do as well. And I'm guessing it's obvious. But you don't see that much, and you see the reaction to it in particular in the state and the city that we are in. My question, my opening question, and I'll start with you, is given that it is so obvious, and there are so many of us here in this room who speak a whole diverse set of languages, why is it that it doesn't seem so obvious to brands? And is it because there is so much migration that's going on? You see a lot of people who don't speak Kannada, who work here in Bangalore, people who don't speak Tamil work in Madras. And with that migration going on in the country, there's so much globalization and democratization of communication that's happening. Has the requirement to speak to people in the local language, therefore, in some sense, reduced? Because Hindi chalega na, right? So is that the thought process, and is that leading to where we are today?
Okay. Thank you for having me. I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I kind of, it's a perspective, and what I've learned through my work over the last few years is that, probably the dominance of English and Hindi as pan-India languages in the world of brands was probably way more accentuated in the pre-social media era, right? But with social media getting democratized, look at what has really happened on ground in society. There are no longer just national influencers, right? There are regional influencers, there are micro, nano influencers, and each of these people are very vernacularly strong, very colloquially proud, right? They speak their language, you get the idioms, you get the metaphors out. And parallelly what's happened, look at what's happened in cinema. I think what you were saying, sir, is correct. The earliest indicators of regionalization were probably the television networks. And then came IPL, right? And now Southern cinema has created the movement of pan-India cinema. So I think actually with the advent of social media and it going down grassroots, regional languages and the vernacular idiom have become democratized. And I find a whole lot of my clients far more appreciative of the need to go regional, to go hyperlocal, not just in terms of distribution and channel sales and all that, but actually by way of communicating. So I think that really is where the clients have very, very proactively and enthusiastically shifted. I think that's very much happening.
So, Santosh, I'll come to you with that, and I've seen the communication that Licious has put out recently, and in particular, I love the Jagada Jagada one in Tamil, growing up with Shiva, but, when I saw the, I'm not getting the name of the actor, right? The Hindi one is Gajraj Rao.
The Gajraj Rao
Yeah,
ad, yes.
yes, yeah. So when I saw the Gajraj Rao ad, it didn't really connect with me, right? But I got the communication that Sunday matlab, it has to be Licious, meat from Licious. But when I saw Jagada Jagada, that was it. Like, you had me with Jagada Jagada, right? And, you know, grown up singing, you know, I sang the Telugu song, perhaps not the Tamil one, but still. And so, tell me, how do you make this decision? Because Licious could have gone with just, you know, a pan-India ad. It would have still made sense because you're a tech brand at the end of it. You're just facilitating that product reaching the consumer at the end of the day. But still, you decided, okay, I'll do a very different ad for the Tamil market as opposed to the Hindi speaking markets. How did that happen? And therefore, what is the impact you've seen?
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks a lot for the feedback, both the positive and negative, because there's enough to learn in every interaction is what I've realized. A little bit of context first, right? I represent a very small startup called Licious, which is in the online meats and seafood space. While we have a turnover of 800 crore, I call it small because we are playing in a category which is 3 lakh crore. So no matter how big we become, we'll always remain small. And imagine a category of 3 lakh crore serving almost 80% of the country. One thing that people don't often realize is that India is predominantly meat eating. Except for 4 northwestern states, in every other state, the percentage of population eating meat is well in excess of 70%. In states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu, it's in excess of 95%, right? So this is in context to the question you're asking, which is how do we decide on going very granular, going very localized? Look, we've learned from our mistakes also. We've done what most brands exploring a foray into regional markets have done, which is sign the biggest cine star in that market and pay them a lot of money, pay a lot for the entourage, pay a lot for the production, and then the returns are not commensurate, right? We used to have a megastar who was megastar in his own right, but didn't really work for us because what we lacked there was we were trying to customize the copy instead of customizing the insight, and I think that's a big, big learning, right? Look, we are in a category where, and I'll take the example of seafood, which is one of the core categories for us. Let's take the example of a fish type called mackerel. A mackerel is, of course, called by different names across the country, but what a mackerel means to a Maharashtrian versus what it means to a Konkani versus what it means to a Mangalorean versus what it means to a Malayali is very different. Somewhere it's a staple, somewhere it's a special. How a mackerel is cut is also different depending on where the curry is originating from. So we had no option but to customize our product, our proposition, and our communication to the audience. And Jagida Jagida is just one example of it. We had tried launching a mega star with a classic cutout style communication which didn't work. And then we decided to spend a lot of time with consumers, decode the insight which they resonate with instead of customizing the copy. And I think that has helped us make some inroads, is how I would put it.
Got it. I want to come to you with that, Sai, which is, I mean, it was, you know, it leads into one of the questions I had, is language cannot be just that one thing, it's culture at the end of it. And I mean, I guess that's the broader term for, you know, insight, is when you go to a certain market, if you just spoke that language, that's not enough. But if you spoke to them with a particular thing that they did on that Sunday or, you know, nostalgia, something of that sort. And Talented has done a little bit of that, especially with the Palich Pongal thing when I saw the lights, you know, I think people can check that Myntra ad out at some point. They used these, what did you term it as?
There is no real term in Tamil Nadu for this. That's the reason why, you know, it's very intriguing that way.
So
yeah.
light bulb OH.
Light art.
Light art, I don't know, light art, right? And they use cutouts. You would generally see this for film stars, you know.
Or gods.
Or gods, always gods. So when you use that, I mean, that is, you just didn't say, you know, if there was a pan-India or a Hindi or English tagline, you just didn't translate it for Myntra. And Myntra being exactly, you know, an aggregator kind of business, it can speak any language it wants to. But then you go for something like light art, which is so specific to Tamil Nadu. I don't think anybody else got it. But you know, when you make the ad, I mean, explaining the ad, that film, I guess people get it. How do you convince the brand, or you know, brands as introspective as Licious has been, and how open are they to ideas of this kind?
So, namaskaram to all. So, I represent Talented in this panel. Great question. I think kudos to the clients, right? When we put an expert hat to this, and it is very specifically for talented. It's a very select group of individuals who really understand the culture. So a Tamil Nadu team inside Talented is sought after, right? So therefore, I think that kind of gives the client the confidence that, you guys tell us what you really want to do. And the light art became an interesting conduit to talk about something as celebratory as fashion. Because the context, there is light art in Calcutta as well. So Kolkata, the Chandanagal lights is very popular, and people would know. If you really look at the context with which a light art is used in Madras or Chennai or even in parts of Tamil Nadu as well, it is an act of celebration. It's an act of, seeing someone you really love passionately in a scale that is as grand as a light art, right? So therefore, we said that, if you're an outsider brand, you're not a Tamil brand, you're an outsider brand. So what is the best way to hack into this culture? That too during the time of Pongal and Pongal releases. In fact, we hacked into a Tamil theater in Rohini, and we put up this, Vijay's, light art with Mintra, etc. They had to take it down because they had to promote the film, right? So, and it's really exciting for us, right? So when that kind of an act happens, then you have hacked well, right? So therefore, going back to the question about, what's the context of light art, I think that was really, really liked by the client. And Vijay, who's the marketing head at Mintra, he said that, if it is Tamil Nadu, I leave it to PG and the team, so to do whatever you want to do. And that's exactly what we did. We mounted 20 feet, 40 feet. And all the light art, if you really look at the animation that happened in the light art, right, are popular cinema moves by Rajnikant, Vijay, Ajit and Trisha. So it had built its own relatability, etc. And we also believe are talented that, it's a very non-traditional outdoor, but at the same time, we do it with an intent that it lands up on social, right? And we genuinely believe in this mantra that, whatever you, find on social doesn't get created on social, but lands on social. So I think that was the intent with which that was built.
Got it. Raktim and Neha, I'll come to you right at the end. I'll skip to Puneet. And something interesting that Sai said here that I want to come to you with, he said that the Tamil Nadu team is sought after. And my question is, you could also answer this, Sushma, is when there is an agency based out of Bangalore, how often is the work that you're doing for a brand that wants work in this language, or you're doing it for a brand that has a pan-India presence, but you're possibly sitting here to service that brand, not really servicing the culture or the language. If there was a national brand that was doing a Tamil Nadu launch and a Karnataka launch, are you doing that work? Or are you doing like a Licious Mintra, they could have done anything, but then you're doing the Hindi or English campaign sitting here? What's the kind of work that you do?
So I would say, the classical legacy way of approaching this, that something gets created out of Bombay. I was in Bombay for 15 years of my career, or Delhi in that matter, and I can just change the language and put it out, is absolute dinosaur thinking now. Okay, you can't even go there. It's like, I think one ad with English in Chennai, you'll see it next day on the social media saying, what the heck are you doing here, right? So I think we live in very woke times, number one. Number two, I think for most of the leaders, at least at Ogilvy, when we look at that, most of the managers, creative or otherwise, the trick of the trade that you have to learn is that there is a lot of inertia against language and culture that exists as biases. And as a leader, you need to really switch from there and pivot from there to becoming a very good hack with languages. And the first part of that hack is that you have to upstream regional talent. You can't have writing ideas and then in the end somebody will translate it. That's absolute harakiri, right? So you have to upstream the talent, and that's a very, very important part right now. If there's a brief happening in my office where we are working on, say, Nirapara, which is a Kerala brand, I cannot absolutely move without a Kerala writer sitting with me or a person from the soil living, because it's a blasphemy for you to do that now. Having said that, I think the biggest challenge we face here is also that somewhere the way classically we worked, all those systems are the resistance in the system right now. Yeah, I'll give an example. You know, the biggest thing that also is happening is that, you know, we are skipping great content. You get my point? And the fact that why language is important is because language is your soul food. When the most vulnerable part of you, when you fall sick, the recipe that your mother feeds. So if you're Bengali, it's jhol bhat. If you're a different culture, so language is that part of you. So for the mind space to move to a more innocent and more vulnerable part of human beings and people of this country is required. And that's where the great ideas are hiding then. And I think that's the most important part for most of the managers to learn to hack it in the right way. Because when you hack it well, you see patterns. If I worked for 3 cultures, I will see a pattern that comes very beautifully. Like, I'll give you an example. In an earlier stint, I used to work with Santosh at Marico. And I remember we were working for a Marico brand, a West Bengal oil, hair oil for younger girls. And for the longest time, we were stuck with an idea. Then one Bengali junior copywriter, and we're discussing music. And he comes up and says, yeah, we're discussing very broad stroke music references. But have you heard this Kishore Kumar song called, you know, Shing Nain Par Naam Tor Shingo, right? And I'm like, oh, I love Kishore Kumar, yeah? Show me what it is. If you know he was mad, then this is the maddest song that he's ever done. And for you to have that pure culture as youth energy come into the brand was the unlocking of that brand at that time. So for us to, and I think hacking is also looked at a very, very new phenomenon. But we've been doing that. The erstwhile word for that was jugaad. Yeah, but we've been doing that for a while. But for us as senior managers, creative or otherwise, to apply that well and see patterns that, hey, if I'm in South, I need to get the same pattern applied with the local culture. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back. So we have a huge panel. This one is the popular panel today. So Aparna, I want to ask you, you know, and we've spoken about food, and you know, food is so close to language, culture. It's, you know, your identity is so close. Yes, and it's so true. Rasam sadam, or you know, charanam for me, because my mother is from Andhra Pradesh, so charanam for me, or mache jhol and bhat is always comfort food. And food, therefore, easily lends itself to those cultural opportunities for cultural-based communication, and therefore language. So I'm guessing that's baked into a brand like Swiggy. It's easy to do that. But my question is, other than the Pongal, and then, you know, April 14th and whatever, those kind of occasions, Deepavali, those kind of things where you get to speak about food, because it's then that what a Tamilian eats is very different from what a North Indian will order home, from what a Bengali is possibly not ordering. They are going to the pandals and, you know, they are celebrating Durga Puja very differently, possibly. But you did have no, that was Zomato, sorry. Yeah, somebody. You also did. you were hoping people will order in for Durga Puja. Blasphemy. So,
one can always hope.
sure. So, my question is, other than those festive occasions where you can naturally speak to people in a language, how often do you end up using language to communicate with people? And especially those push notifications that you keep sending.
I like the ending of the question, I must say. Okay, good afternoon. It's really nice to be here. So the first part is absolutely correct. I think we find it very easy to talk to cultures in their language during the occasion, right? So we've done some great campaigns for Onam and for Pujo, like you said. They love eating at the pandal, but we actually knew that and celebrated the vehicle of joy, which is our delivery boy, and we said, it's the vehicle of joy, like you celebrate in the city of joy, Calcutta. So it was an ode to the cultural motive of, you know, the vahans of the gods that are taken on a parade. So we also take a flip, not just on the language, but like you said, the cultural motive and fabric, which is easiest to connect to during a festival. But do we do that outside of the festival? Actually, all of last year, we've done that almost in every campaign. And I'll speak of one particular campaign. In South, which is also where we are the dominant player, we're the larger player, we actually capitalized on a very simple local idiom, which is called vet. In Tam, vet is like you can belt food. The same thing travels across all 4 languages as well, right? It's literally the same vet for all 4. And we were basically trying to increase the number of occasions one orders in, and weekend is the easiest place. It's the one where the family gathers together. And when we did consumer work, they literally told you, this weekend, you're going to go to no, which basically means this weekend I want to belt good food because at the time. So we did a campaign which is like Netflix and chill is what it's called. We called it Swiggy Weekend Vettu. That's all it was. And that ran for 3 months. We paused it for 2, then brought it back for 3, and now its total airtime is 9 months. It's probably our best performing campaign because it sticks, right? And we obviously worked with Southify, Mind Your Language actually, and they are again deep-seated and rooted in South, and it's easier to come up with an insight, like Santosh said, and not necessarily the copy when you're talking in the language. So when we were on the table, we were talking in Tam. There was no English. We're like, can we talk in Tam and write the script? So we did that. And push notifications, we actually did an experiment. We said, you know what, we'll do a control set. We send push notifications, say, to 100 people. We said 30 we will send in the language. It's unfortunately in English, depending on the phone prescription, right? It depends on your setting. You can also see a push notification in your vernacular script. So we tried it and we realized the open rates were 4x, especially in TN and Kerala, open rates were 4x. Of course, Bangalore, Hyderabad, it kind of dilutes because the more metro you become. And that's all. We stuck to, we have Tamil and Malayalam writers for push notifications. We now have a Kannada writer as well. Because it's the only way to relate, right? When I'm sick, I say Amma. I don't say Mom.
These writers are in-house?
I have in-house as well.
Okay.
And we work with MYL and Southify very, very regularly. So push notification, you see it every day. And imagine when you're hungry, if I actually ping you with rasam, you're more likely to open than, a QSR one. And that's what we want. And it's not just about language again. It's about culturally what's relevant, right? You want to ensure that it's Navratri. Be conscious of what you're pinging them with. So I think it's a mix of both, and we've gone way beyond just occasions to talk to them in the local language. And Vettu was one example. We're doing one more right now, which is basically about when you have hunger pangs, like I said, the first thing is, like it's maa ke haath ka khana, it's your home food. Like I also go back to rasam. I like Asian, but sushi is not my thing when I'm sick. So, yeah.
Thank you. 4x, that's huge.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
So now I want to come to you, Raktim, and then to you, Neha. I think Shrikant mentioned this in his opening address, that media brands, I think, have taken the lead in some sense. Like, name a language and you would have that language news channel. And honestly, growing up, you would turn on Sun TV and Jaya to just check how is the weather today. Like today, do we go to school or do we not go to school? And then depending on what Sun is saying, Jaya is saying the whole opposite thing. And there's a whole banter around that. But you're not turning on India Today or NDTV to check in school polama, right? And so, Raktim, what are learnings that you have from going into every market that is there and setting up a brand in those markets, learnings that you can share with our marketer friends and agency friends here?
Sure. First of all, about Srikant's opening remarks about how media brands have leveraged the power of languages, and also about your own opening remarks, how you are a true manifestation. Your name is a true manifestation of foil. So I've always found your name intriguing, but then actually you are a true manifestation of this entire nomenclature foil. Now, on a serious note, I'll tell you, if you go back in time, if you look at how the entire media landscape had evolved, so you had broadcast channels who were primarily started off with English, and then you have various networks which got into languages. So you take into account a network like ours, which is TV9 network, we got 6 languages. So we got Hindi, we got Telugu, we got Kannada, we got Marathi, we got Gujarati, and we got Bangla. Now these 6 languages, if you look at it holistically, they are actually all language differentiated market. So if you look at how we address the entire market, yes, I have a Hindi language which could be overlapping with a Gujarati market or a Marathi market or a Bangla market. But the rest of the other languages, whether it is say, Telugu or Malayalam say, a viewer would never watch a Telugu channel, or a Telugu guy would never watch a Kannada channel. You could find a overlap of a Marathi guy watching a Hindi channel, but the overlap is not there at all when you get into the Indic languages. Yes, there are some 22 Indic languages, but about 10 of them would represent almost about, say, 85 to 90% of the total Indian population. So from our perspective, when we look at our business, 6 languages that we have, it almost represents about 1 billion out of the total 1.35 billion Indian population at this point in time. So that's the power of language when it comes to broadcast business. And right now, if you extrapolate that to the digital side of the business, so it's easier for us to get into digital space in terms of coming up with publishing platforms, because broadcast is a very, very expensive business in terms of distribution and everything. But digital isn't that expensive, because you can leverage technology. You can leverage technology not only for distributing your content, but you could also leverage technology today with the power of AI to even create content from a larger perspective. Because it's about that if you have, for example, Kannada website, it's not that the Kannada guy wants to only read about news or general interest affairs which is happening in and around Karnataka. It's that he has got a larger affinity with the Kannada language, and he wants to read news or current affairs, which is international news or say national news, but in his own mother language. So that's the essence of a Kannada viewer or a Telugu reader or a Marathi viewer. So from that perspective, it has actually become very easy for media companies to start getting into multiple Indic languages. So today, from our perspective, if we have just about, say, 6 languages as far as broadcast business is concerned, we have been able to get into 11 languages as far as the digital business is concerned. Because the way we have sort of looked at is that at this point in time, if you look at the entire Indian population, about, say, 1.15 billion mobile connections in the country. Out of these 1.15 billion mobile connections, about 750 million people are active internet users. And I would say 500 million people are on social media. That's a huge, huge opportunity for any media brand to get into that entire space. Earlier, with broadcast or say print, it was difficult because the cost of doing business was huge. Now, with the opportunities that you have in terms of creating publishing platforms, websites, and all of that, it's become easier for us to get into multiple languages. And as I said, this languages represents almost a huge chunk of the entire audience which is available for brands to look into. So, I'll just have one last statement. For example, with this 11 languages that we have on YouTube itself, we do on average about, say, 1.3 billion online video views on a monthly basis. That's
1.3 billion in a month.
Online video views on a monthly basis with this 11 languages.
With 11 languages.
So that's the power of Indic languages. And the future is only gonna be better because just about, say, 10, 11 languages we've got into. With technology coming in, with AI powering content creation, it will be easier.
Sure, you can replicate that much easily. Neha, you can give us a sense of this also. I mean, saying, the scale is just, and to scale is also easy, is what he's also getting at. What has your experience been at ABP Digital? Because you look at that digital business where that scaling is so much easier.
Absolutely. So I have a little different perspective here because like Karthik said, that there is a difference between translation and insights, right? So while AI, of course, is great, it has helped us in many ways, but what has mattered is the insight of the consumer. For us, even our reader is a consumer. So, and you'll be surprised, even when I came over at Anand Bazaar and I saw the reports, an average time spent of on an audience being 25 minutes. I thought it's actually the wrong report. Because, it was so shocking. And I have not seen I've been in the digital business for a long time. I've not seen a website that can boast of even 5 minutes in terms of news publisher.
This is per day, you're saying?
This is, per user, So 25 minutes is something that I was like, mind-blowing insane. I had hired people to sell and they were like, this is criminal. How do we beat that? And that's where the most important part comes in place. Anand Bazaar is synonymous with Bengal, West Bengal. Yeah. We understand our consumer. We customize the content, even though it is national news. We do not focus majorly on just translated content. We focus on what our consumer wants to read. We focus on what our consumer wants to see. See, that market is a reader's market. Right, there's a difference, especially when you're selling news, there's a difference between a reader's market and a viewer's market. A UP would be more of a viewer's market, but West Bengal is a reader's market. So that's how we customize, the whole content for that. And we also have pivoted in the last 1 year, where we act as the consultants to our brand partners and our agencies. We bring to the table the insights of that market that nobody else can. Right? We help them customize their campaigns, not just in terms of languages, but in terms of how they reach out to the audiences. We help them break the clutter because we understand the clutter that happens during Durga Puja. That's the festive time. We won the DGs this year for, Mondelez's campaign, which is, imagine in a mithai market, you're selling celebration chocolates. That's what we bring to the table, and that's how we, collaborate with our brands and our agencies that we work with.
Got it. And that kind of brings me to the question I want to ask Sushma and Puneet here, and then Sai too. But then I think you're not part of a large agency network, so I don't have that question for you. But you can chime in. Is sorry, Pa. Don't mind. So, no, the question is, from both what Neha is saying and Aparna is saying, especially the example of working with a different organization to do these push notifications in a local language. And so this decentralization of the creative decision making in some sense, how do you do that at your organization, at Mullen, at Ogilvy? Do you work with, so if say there's a brief that's come to Delhi, Bombay, and then they're like, okay, we have to get this done, but in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala. So then does it end up happening that they solve it by sending it to your office here in Bangalore, or they directly work with a smaller agency that's possibly just a specific meme marketing agency there that only understands this, will do this wonderfully well, or they come to you and you possibly are then going to again collaborate with somebody else, or you just apply a translator on it? How does it work?
See, I think at a few different levels actually. First thing is, as again saying decentralized, I would probably say it's more fluid, right? An important part of way to achieve that is at an organizational structure at a national level. If somewhere at the level of resourcing, staffing, we can have diversity which mimics diversity in society, right? And those people can be anywhere, right? They might be in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, anywhere. And also they needn't be restricted to the creative team itself, right? Ideas can come from anywhere. More often than not they do, right? Insights, observations come from people across the board. So I think overall net at a pan-India level, if we have a fair representation of diverse vernacular, people from diverse vernacular backgrounds, then it's a matter of, organizing work, plugging and playing with, the actual core team on a brand, and take it on a need basis, on a project-to-project basis. But I think what Puneet said earlier was very pertinent, that those people, that talent has to be upstreamed. They can't be brought in after the idea has been cracked, after a script has been written. Because sometimes an idiom, a metaphor might be the genesis for an idea itself, right? So it's very important to rope in that talent right at the onset.
So how diverse is the talent in, say, your team? Do you have people representing all the 4 South Indian languages, unless you call Marathi South Indian?
So if you're sitting in the Bangalore office, of course, the answer is a big yes, because you'll have to cover all the bases really well, get really, really fresh talent in. But I think what is also happening with decentralization is that at Ogilvy, I can say that if there is a brief, for example, I work on a brand called Fortune, which has a very wide footprint, right, from West Bengal to South, to Gujarat to North. Now you tap into it. The resources that sit out of Kolkata for me, I don't know if you guys saw a beautiful ad on Coca-Cola that was done this Pujo by Ogilvy Kolkata office. I'm saying for us to be able to tap into that talent is the most important part. And for those silos to be broken where the right kind of people come and sit and do what needs to be done. So that's one part of it. The second part in the big agency network right now is, I think we touched upon it more than often, and is the insight. I think strategic planning planners play a very important role and a much more stronger role than they ever did now. Because I think the lines between all those silos are blurring and they've already blurred. So when you're sitting, the kind of insights you get into, I'll give you an example. Again, I said Fortune, the brand sits on a beautiful idea that Piyush cracked, ghar ka khana hota hai. It's a Hindi thought, right? But now they have a huge problem facing in TN. I can't go and say ghar ka khana hota hai. Now it comes down to the verbiage of it versus the insight of it. So when we went back to the insight, there's a beautiful writer that we've got, a hardcore Tamilian girl, who came with this word called kaimanam, which is the beauty of love transference and touch of what you do to food. So that becomes the right firing word on the inside. And the last part of this entire thing is giving autonomy to your people. Because you cannot control it sitting in a head office anymore. You get the insight right, you get the planning part right, and then you give autonomy. The people sitting in the local places, in the regions, know how to really mount it well, and you have to let them do that.
Go ahead. Santosh,
If I may
sorry,
just,
yeah, sure.
sorry, just piping in what, just one point I'm passionate about, since he brought up, the strategic work that goes into it, the insight mining. One thing I've realized, and I like to say this often at work as well, is that you cannot focus group or direct interview culture, right? You have to observe it, you have to trail it, you have to make your notes, behave more like an ethnographer than a conventional ad researcher. So I think even research methodologies need to evolve to be able to, cull out the right kind of cultural insights, whether it's language or whether it's a ritual or a custom or a mannerism in many cases. And that would help probably regionalize what otherwise would be a pan-India universal insight.
Got it. Santosh, my question, extension of what I'd asked Sushma and Puneet is, so how do you work with your agency partners for creative advertising? Do you have different agencies for different markets? What's your system like?
So we work on a dual model. I have a Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, and Telugu. I have writers for all the 4 languages in my own team, because a substantial part of our business comes from the south, and we can't help but have in-house talent. We also, from time to time, work with some very accomplished agencies based out of the south. MYL is, by the way, behind Jagida Jagida as well as a campaign. I think Deepan and his team do phenomenal work. Why this is important is because, look, irrespective of how much progress happens on the AI front, you cannot have a Hindi or an English writer figure out the best way of writing what they have in their mind in the regional language. They won't be able to nail it, because there is language and then there is dialect, then there is colloquialism. These are very different things, right? You have to think about the idea in the regional language and then pen it down, visually created, all of that. For that, you need people who've lived in that culture for the longest time. You cannot have, and pardon me for saying this, but you cannot have a Tamil writer who's lived all his or her life in Bombay and expect them to churn out great stuff. I don't think it works. It does not work for me, at least, because they don't quite get the pulse of the market, is what I have seen in my limited experience. And hence it's important to find someone who's ingrained in the culture. Take a bet on people. You don't have to always go after much sought after talent. If you can give a break to someone who's really lived in that culture, that's also a great way of doing it. That's the way we operate as well. There are many mainline agencies who have a south wing. I won't trust them. I just won't trust them. I'm sorry. I know I have some very... Puneet is a friend. I know Ogilvy has a south division. But
why,
look,
why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
No, because I think it's going to come down to, again, Puneet, you're my friend, you'll continue to be my friend. But it'll come down to someone who's had a bit of a tryst with the language, but they can't think in that language, is at least what I have seen, again, in my experience, versus, say, an agency that has come up from a city within the southern diaspora. Yeah.
It begins with the thinking, right? You have to be vernacular thinkers. Not just somebody who knows the language, and that is an important distinction that one needs to make.
Just want to add a little bit there, and this is the point I was trying to make when Puneet spoke. See, it's very rare to sit in a discussion with Puneet and not come up with a fresh idea, a new idea, right? Something struck me when he was talking, and he took it upon himself to represent the creative fraternity and say, you spoke about moving it upstream, right? I think marketers, and Aparna, you and I have to take the we have to put up a hand and take the hit as well, because I don't remember the last time my brand leads churned out an insight and a brief in the regional language. Right? When you're briefing a creative agency, and it just struck me, and I'm going to change that for sure. So thank you, Foil. But it just struck me that if you cannot brief your agency by crafting the insight and the main one-line brief in the regional language, then what are you even expecting? So that's something that struck me when Puneet was speaking. Sorry.
That's why sorry, I'm talking out of turn, but that's why I said that when we did Weekend Wetter, the entire discussion happened in TAM, because we were very clear saying, look, it's the dominant market, and I'm fairly certain when PG was ideating on the light art.
MBK is all Tamil.
Exactly.
You said Tamil Nadu, like, it's like a newsroom. We have a Tamil Nadu bureau. We have this. So
Yeah, it's a proper bureau setup.
How many do you have?
Yeah, so we have an art director, we have a writer, we have a influencer who writes for MBK handles, and there is a strategist who is a Tamilian himself. So it's a foolproof team. So the conversations are in Tamil. We feel bad for the account management folks because we say, apologize, and I'm really sorry. This has to happen this way because it's not words, right? It's like they say, macha is a word, machi is an emotion.
Yes.
That comes only if you kind of speak about. Just one point that I wanted to add on what Puneet said about how Fortune had this one insight and therefore we had to identify that's still customization, right? And kudos to the clients at Britannia. Milk Bikkies, from a strategy standpoint, has a different brand key altogether. That's how they are very specific about this market. They say that rest of India ke liye alag. This is what it is for Milk Bikkies when it comes to it. So therefore, the essence and the benefits and the emotional benefits and the plank upon which the brand will exist is exclusively for Tamil Nadu. And that gives a lot of freedom for the creative. Suddenly we are not force-fitting, and this force-fitting idea and strategy is like a scam. So we are not doing that, right? And therefore the authenticity when it comes to the word Peter and all has been adopted, and the Peter got printed on the Milk Bikkies. Yeah, so it happens so only if you have that kind of a leeway given to you by the other side as well. So I just wanted to,
I just wanted to add slightly one important point to that. I think the importance of how much zeitgeist I use is extremely important right now. I think social is becoming the door to the culture right now. And the most startling statistic that I heard in a conference recently was that rural influencers are much more convincing and trusted by their followers than urban are. So that tells you how granular it has become now. So I completely agree when you say that a Mumbai-based Tamil writer can't write if he's been there for 20 years now. I think the fresher the catch is of creative talent, the better it is.
Got it. Time is up, but then I have a follow-up question. Is you have a Tamil Nadu team, so do you have a Karnataka, Kerala?
Absolutely, 100%. And the way we work is the full, fortunately or unfortunately, the founder himself is a Tamilian. So therefore it adds a lot of weightage to what we bring to the table, right? The other founder is a Malayali, so therefore that also adds weightage to the table. Now, there is a unique situation where there is a Northeast brief or a West Bengal brief, and I think talented model is very plug and play that way. So we do have a bank of freelancers that we work with, and we look for authentic representation from that standpoint. And they lead the conversation, right, from the client conversations to internal conversations and so on and so forth. And we have that reputation of working with cross-body of the linguistic talent that is available there. Even a simplest VO is scrutinized to a level of T, right? Because it can't sound like some Saukar pet guy speaking in Tamil. It has to be as authentic as, right? So I think those nuances are taken care of. And it totally comes from our experience working on Tamil first briefs. We realized that if this region needs that kind of an attention and importance, it has to have the same attention and importance for other regions as well. So
actually, to that one thing, as marketers, right, and I'm sure there are lots of advertising folk, and because they write, it's ingrained in them. But as marketers, the one thing that in my previous organization, I was with HUL, we were pretty clear saying that if you're doing consumer work, go to the state that you understand the most if the brand's relevant. So because I could at least understand Kannada, I would come a lot to Bangalore, I would go to Tamil Nadu. But when I was on Lakme, I needed to literally go with someone who knew Bengali because East was my largest market, and I needed to know that what chokher meant. I needed to know what, and I would sit and I did have a translator, but boy, it didn't help. Like I knew that I was losing the nuances. So as marketers, you also need to understand that if your largest market is not in the language, at least understand some nuances and find the Bengali in your team. If you don't have one, hire one and go to Calcutta with it. It makes a huge difference because if advertising agencies and if writers have teams, what gives us the free chit to say that मैं तो हिंदी में सोचूंगी or I'll think in English and write the brief, much to what Santosh said. So I had the joy of briefing in TAM. Even for the Pujo advertising, I took again the Bengali in my team to say, please explain this Khushir Bahon concept. And then they jammed in Bengali. I was a happy bystander, but I was quite convinced that it made sense.
Neha, I'm so sorry. Time's up, but I can sense that this is a conversation that will also continue, off stage, and it's something that I think all of you are so, and I think all of us here are so invested in, and I'm glad to see so much change in the process of, you said you're going to change how you brief, so you're going to brief in the local language, and that there's already so much conversation going on within your organizations. So glad to hear about all of this. I know I had so many other questions that I wanted to talk to you guys about, but thank you so much, and thank you for being here.